Hey there, my name is Chris Winter and today I've got my hands on the brand new Canon SL2 or 200D. Now I actually think this is a fantastic budget DSLR video camera, especially if you know some of the best settings to use. So in this video I'm going to give you a couple of tips and tricks on the best settings to use with the brand new Canon SL2 or 200D. And guys, if you want to win a Canon SL2 or Nikon D3400, I'm currently giving one away. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to this channel and my brand new travel channel, which I'll link in the description box below. And guys, if you make YouTube videos, definitely make sure to check out my brand new list that I just made, the best cameras for YouTube. I go through some of the cameras that would be best for you. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description box below this video and you can take a look. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the best settings to use for DSLR video with your brand new Canon SL2 or 200D. Now, one feature that I love to use, but not a lot of people know about, is the digital zoom feature. Again, we're going to access this by hitting Q. And we're going to go down to this third option right here, which is this little magnifying glass. Now, if we hit this button on the right here, you'll notice that we've actually zoomed in 3 times the amount. I'll just show you again. This is without the zoom, and this is with the zoom. Now, digital zoom, generally when you think about this, it's not great. You're thinking about your old cameras, which used to really make the image bad. But with Canon's digital zoom, essentially this allows you to have 3 times the amount of zoom without losing any image quality. It actually works really, really well, especially if you don't own a lot of lenses. What you can actually do is if you hit the button at the very top here, we can actually zoom in even more. You can zoom from 3 times to 10 times. Now, I will warn you, when you do go past 3 times the amount of zoom, you will be losing your image quality. But if you are using 3 times the amount of zoom, it's generally just taking a crop from the sensor and you can actually get some really good looking shots. So I'll just show you quickly. If I zoom in here with my 55mm lens, just adjust the focus right there, you can see that we're really, really zoomed in. And again, we can go even further in to 10 times. And this is just with the one lens. So I'll just show you right here. We'll zoom all the way back out, turn off digital zoom, and you can see the massive difference that we're able to have with just one lens and that digital zoom feature. So let's talk about autofocus now. And this is one of the best features on this brand new Canon SL2 because it's got that new dual pixel autofocus system that's on cameras such as the Canon 70D, 80D, Canon 5D Mark IV. These are really good quality cameras and it's trickled down now to this budget camera. So there's a couple of settings that I like to use when I'm using the autofocus on the Canon SL2. So again, if we hit Q and we go up here, we've got our autofocus setting. So let's tap on that. So there's a couple of different options that I like to use. And the first one is the little single point, 1 point autofocus. And essentially, if we tap on this, you can see that we have this little square. So the great thing about this, especially for a beginner, is wherever you touch is going to smoothly and cinematically come into focus. So I can just touch here on this computer screen and that's going to be in focus. And if you're using an STM lens, like the kit lens that comes with this camera, you can pretty much be assured that it's going to be pretty quick and pretty smooth. So for example, let me put my hand in the front here, and if I go like this, and then tap on my hand, you can see that it's come into focus, and it's going to stay in focus as long as my hand is in that square. And what you can actually do is, if I move my hand over here, you can actually move your finger and keep it in focus, and whatever's in this little square is going to stay in focus. It works really, really well. Now, another feature that I really like to use on the autofocus is the face tracking one, and I use this in all of my videos, and I've actually used this in all of my videos for the last 3 years. So again, we're going to go to AF, then we're going to go to tracking. This is face tracking. And then watch this as I move into the frame. And I'm not exactly sure because I can't see, but is my face now in one of these squares? Because what you can actually see is that with face tracking, it can pick up exactly where my face is. It's got facial recognition and it works really, really well. So if I move forward and back, you'll see that the square is actually keeping my face in focus and it works fantastically. I'll just move out of frame for a second. And you can see that even as I move back in, it's picked me up again, hopefully. And it's a great thing if you're going to be doing a lot of YouTube or you're going to be filming yourself. Having this facial tracking is something that I think is a really good feature, and I'm pretty confident in using it. I use it in all of my videos. It really is a great feature on the Canon SL2. Now, one of the first settings you might want to change when you get your Canon SL2 is the picture style or picture profile. To access this, we're just going to hit Q. Then we're going to go down to the third option on the right here. And when you first get your camera, it's very likely going to be in A or auto mode. Now this is not a bad setting to use if you're just starting and you want to just have a nice looking image out of the box. But if you ever want to do any post-processing or change the colors when you're editing, I like to shoot in the N style, which is neutral. Now, this is a relatively flat image. If you hit info, you can actually change the settings even more. So we can adjust the sharpness. We can make it a little bit sharper. I like to generally have it at around about 2 or 3. And go back. You can adjust the contrast. I like to bring my contrast down a little bit to around about 2. And then you can adjust the saturation, which is how colorful the image is going to be. And I like to bring this one up to around about 1. With these, you can change them all you want. You can even go back, and if you want to shoot in different settings, you can even do things like monochrome. If you press that one there, that's going to be black and white. But generally, I'd recommend shooting in the neutral picture profile, because when you bring it back to post in your editing software, you can change your colors without having too much degradation of the image. Now, if you're new to DSLRs, one thing that you might have heard about, but you might be a little bit confused about, is white balance. It can be a little bit confusing. Generally, when I recommend beginners are starting out, I actually think using auto white balance can be a good thing to use 90% of the time. Now let's access white balance. Again, we're going to use the Q, and then we're going to go to white balance, which is the second option right here. Now at the bottom here, we have a number of different options. We've got daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, fluorescent, and flash. Again, like I said, it's generally a good idea to use auto white balance if you're not sure what to do, because if you do change it to something like daylight, and I'm under fluorescent lights right here, we're going to be getting some really funky colors and it doesn't look great. So for example, because I'm under fluorescent lights in my studio right here, if I change this to fluorescent light, you can see right here we're actually getting a really nice perfect color shot right here. So it's something that if you can, take the time to learn a little bit more about white balance, but if not, don't be afraid to use auto white balance. 90% of the time, 95% of the time it's going to get it right. But if you do know that you're under fluorescent lights, or if you're under tungsten lights, or if you're outside and it's a cloudy day, feel free to use those options and play around and learn your white balance. Let's now talk about frame rates. Now, there are a number of different options you can have with your Canon SL2. To access frame rates, we're going to hit Q again. I'm going to go to the second option here. And you can see that we have a number of different options. Now, I'm in Australia, so my frame rate is going to be slightly different to yours. If you're in America, you're going to be getting things like 60 frames per second, 24 frames per second, whereas I've got 50 frames per second and 25 frames per second, but they're very similar. Essentially with 50 or 60, you can use this if you want to get some slow motion. If you shoot in 25 frames per second or 24 frames per second, this is going to be great for that cinematic film look, because this is what most movie cameras shoot with. You can also shoot in lower settings, which is probably something I wouldn't recommend, but if you do want to shoot in these, you can also shoot in HD or VGA. Now, one thing that a lot of beginners make the mistake on is not focusing enough on getting good quality audio. Now, a lot of top filmmakers will actually say that getting good quality audio is just as important as getting a good quality shot. So if I zoom out here, you'll actually see that I've got a shotgun mic that's actually plugged into the side here on the Canon SL2. What we're going to do right now is go to your menu, and we're going to take a look at the settings here with the audio. So if we go to the very first option and third down, we've got a sound recording option. Let's click on this, and when you first get your Canon SL2, there's a good chance that it's going to come in automatic mode. We actually want to change that to manual. And the reason for this is that the Canon SL2 has a thing called auto gain control. And this is not really something that we want to have, because that's when you get that hissing kind of sound, because the camera doesn't really know what it wants to pick up, and it kind of just raises all of the sound and it doesn't sound very good. So let's change it to manual. And what I like to do is actually change my recording level pretty much all the way down to the very bottom, maybe a little bit up depending on the microphone that you're using. But what this is going to allow you to do is have your preamps in your camera not working too hard, and the sound being picked up on the microphone working a lot more for you, and you're going to be able to get some nice clean audio. Now, I would always recommend playing around with this and testing out your sound before you actually go out and record. That way you can get the best quality sound. But if you do use a shotgun mic, you're going to be getting much better audio than using the inbuilt audio on your Canon SL2. Now, if you guys are new to photography, you might have heard about the rule of thirds, which is essentially a way of knowing where to put your subject or your points of interest in your shot. The Canon SL2's got a great little feature called grid display, which allows you to have those rule of thirds overlaid. So the way to get these are to go to menu. I'm going to go to the fourth option across. And if we go all the way down, you can see grid display. So let's hit set. Then we're going to hit the 3x3 option. Now, if we go back to the video, you can see that we have this awesome grid display, which will be overlaid on your video only when you're using it right here. Don't worry, when you actually film your video, it's not going to be recorded. But this is a great way of knowing exactly where to put your subjects, especially if you're new to cinematography and you're not really 100% sure about the rule of thirds. You can use this to really know where to put your subjects. It can be a good idea to have. Now, I'm going to make a full video on this later on, but if you want to know exactly how to make a time lapse on your Canon SL2, I'll show you where to go. So all you need to do is go to menu, go to the fifth option at the top here, and you're going to see we've got this option called time lapse movie. So if we hit enable, you can see we have all of these different options right here, including the time lapse, the amount of shots, whether or not we're going to have auto exposure, and if we want to have the LCD on or off, so we can save a little bit of battery. But once you've hit this, all you need to do is now hit the record button, and you can see that the time lapse has started. It's really as simple as that. And once you hit this again, the time lapse has stopped and you've made your very first time lapse. And one quick tip here is if you bought your Canon SL2 with a kit lens, which means you've got the body and the kit, make sure to use the image stabilization feature, because in video, this works really, really well. So obviously, in order to turn it on, you just hit this little switch right here from off to on. And what this is going to allow you to do is hand hold your camera a lot better, because even if you've got a rocky hand, this is going to really work well to counteract the image stabilization. So if you don't have a tripod, I'd always recommend using that image stabilization on your 18 to 55mm kit lens. So there you go, guys. That were just a couple of settings that I like to use with the Canon SL2 for video. Hopefully you can use them as well and you can get some nice crispy video. And guys, if you make YouTube videos, definitely make sure to check out my brand new list that I just made, the best cameras for YouTube. I go through some of the cameras that would be best for you. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description box below this video and you can take a look. I hope you guys have a fantastic day and I'll see you in the next video. Happy shooting. Bye.